All right, we are on cam. We are live. we are having a wonderful
Having
time
the time of
together.
our lives.
Yeah, we really are. My dog has this thing where she loves to eat pockets out of jeans, and I just caught her red-handed. The more mature one out of the two. The other one I put in the crate because you can't trust her anymore because she wants to eat poisonous plants. Jeff Ulrich, Reed T. Fowler, producer Eamon behind the scenes, Andrew on the ones and twos. It is so good to see everybody on the highest rated edition of the Slate, Wednesday edition of the Slate with the golf gurus, football gurus. Jeff says he could talk basketball if we need to because there's a couple planned tournament games tonight around the NBA. How is everyone doing today? Let's start with you, Jeff.
I'm doing fantastic, man. Just a nice little Wednesday kicking up right before the golf gets on. Kind of excited for the golf tournament this week. I don't know why. But the RBC, it's a fun little event. It's got a cool little course, and I think that it's going to be close. I mean, just feels like there's a billion people who could get in contention. So excited for the golf to start. We got the draft coming up. I love the draft, man. Trade deadlines and drafts. That's like what I live for. Those are the favorite times of the year for me. So
that's because it's like filled with drama and rumors, and you
Totally.
thrive on that kind of stuff. Reed, the RBC Heritage is like a fun little golf tournament to bet. And like, for me, it does have like a piece of nostalgia with it because like as a kid, I always remember it's always the week after the Masters. You see like the lighthouse there, and you tend to get some pretty big names, which like this week there are.
Yeah, there's 5 of the top 10 and 9 of the top 20 who are in the field.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of these guys mentioned in their pressers that they love this golf course.
Yeah.
It's laid back, the environment. So going from Augusta to here is a nice change of pace for these guys. But they also mentioned that this is a course that they can win on. And Colin Morikawa has mentioned that this is one of his favorite courses on tour. And it's good in the sense that, most of these tournaments in the RBC Canadian Open is sometimes, being, I think, before the Open Championship, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, has not, worked out well in terms of scheduling. But that course, like Glen Abbey and this, like RBC Canadian Open, is one of the oldest opens in golf history. And so you don't want to lose these type of tournaments, and especially not feature these type of courses, and seeing the good golfers, right? The top golfers on these golf courses like Harbour Town. So it's really exciting. And there's a lot, and we're going to get into it, but the average odds of the past 5 winners is like 13,400. So 134 to 1. Like those are some massive odds. So you can, if you've been hurting a little bit like yours truly over the last 3 tournaments, circling the leader and the winner, this tournament could bring back some of that bankroll.
I mean, yeah, that's why like Stuart Sink, a guy like him has won this thing 3 times. Who knows? The hat tan man. We didn't get to him this morning, but I don't know. Maybe you'll show him some love a little later. I did want to start with some NFL news today. Reed, congratulations. Derek Carr with a fat extension. So as a Raiders fan, I want to know, how happy are you about this? I talked to Jeff a little bit about it on the Sweat this morning, but come on, talk to me. He's the longest tenured quarterback in the AFC, and now he's going to be around at least through 2025.
Yeah, rightfully so. Everybody else pales in comparison to number 4 in the silver and black. I don't care about number 15 in the division or number 10 or the stupid number 3 that's coming in, like in terms of Russell Wilson. I know he's not stupid. He's fantastic. I just get fired up when I talk about the Raiders, and Russell Wilson is great. I know that's Jeff's boy. But once Davante Adams was acquired, the Raiders had to do this, right? Like it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to stay. If Davante Adams, re-signed or like was okay playing under the franchise tag of Green Bay, then I would have said, this seems a little nearsighted because you could get a bounty for Derek Carr. We talked about it quite a bit on this show, but once Adams was signed and he was a Raider, this was a foregone conclusion, and good for them, right? There's a 3-year window, because there's an extension now, a 4-year window, that Derek Carr and the Raiders need to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Right. And they're doing a lot of that work now, laying the foundation in terms of the coach, the defense, and now some key players on offense. So, I thought it was great. He deserves it. He wants to be a Raider for life. And, I'm always going to side with the guys getting more money.
Yeah, Jeff, Carr's going to make $40.5 million now per year. That puts him 5th among the highest paid quarterbacks. I mean, quarterbacks are just making ridiculous money now. 7th QB of the $40 million club already. Is he worth it, do you think, Jeff?
The funny thing is, and this is what I said this morning, What's your option for the Raiders if you're not paying Derek Carr? Like it's like the Mitch Trubisky, Marcus Mariota train. So I think Reed is dead on. Once they made the move for Devontae Adams, what are you going to do? Say, yeah. Well, by the way, we're going to like downgrade a quarterback as well. That makes no sense. So, it's kind of unfortunate, but in a way, maybe it like creates some value for the Raiders in the betting department too. Because if the Raiders were in, say, the AFC South with like the Texans and the Jags, they might be like up there with the favorites, with the Colts or something. Like switch the Titans and the Raiders might be co-favorites in that division, but because they're in the AFC West, like it's just, even with all these good moves, and I do like the moves they've made, it's like they're still they still seem like they're the fourth best team in that division. They're plus 600 in that division right now there with the odds. I got my boy Chris Kirk up there too. So, I like what the Raiders have done. And I don't even really mind paying Derek Carr. Like, again, what else are you going to do? You're going to take like a weak quarterback this year in a bad draft class? No. You commit, things can happen. Reed's right. They got like a 3 or 4 year window now. Just because the Broncos or the Chargers are looking good now doesn't mean by the end of next year, the start of 2024, they're looking good. Maybe that's the Raiders' time. So I like what they've done. I think that Derek Carr sometimes just gets a little bit, not enough like love just because of like, he's a solid quarterback. He's probably a top 12 quarterback, but he's not necessarily elite. I don't know. I mean, like, what's your other Derek Carr option? I'd rather have Derek Carr than Kirk Cousins any day of the week. I'd rather pay Derek Carr. So yeah, wow. I don't mind it. I really don't.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, Reed, it's worth probably sprinkling a little bit of cash on, because you have the Chiefs who have shipped out Tyreek Hill, right? And you do have his former college teammate, the best wide receiver in football, who's likely going to lead the league in targets next season. They've spent a lot of cash. Chandler Jones, Max Crosby. They went 10-7 last year and only finished 2 games behind the Chiefs. Like, especially if they can go into the season, Reed, and you think maybe aim to split that series like with the Chiefs, because we know what the Chiefs did to them in both regular season meetings last year. But like, seems like there's some good value on this bet. Yeah,
and look, when you're the Raiders, I think in back-to-back years had either the toughest schedule. I think that was in 2020. They had the toughest schedule, and then last year, like top 5 in terms of what they did, and then they went 10-7. I think the overall consensus, even from me, was that 8-9, 8-8 would have been a success, but they made the playoffs. Now, granted, they got a little bit lucky, but then unlucky in that first round of the playoffs in the wild card against the Cincinnati Bengals. But when you take a look at what they can do from an offensive perspective, it's going to be tough of where you're going to focus, right? Do you focus on Darren Waller? You can't not double team Devontae Adams, and that leaves one of the best route runners, currently a young route runner in Hunter Renfrow, being completely one-on-one, and he destroys single coverage.
He's amazing.
So you're going to see a lot of zone coverage and from these defenses. And when you take a look at what Josh McDaniels has done in his entire career in New England, is pick apart zone defenses in the AFC East. Now, Tom Brady is very different than Derek Carr, extremely different than Derek Carr, but there's a lot of comparisons, right? Bill Belichick tried to trade for Carr last year, the year before, right? Because Brady was leaving. So there's some comparisons, and I'm sure that's why Josh McDaniels chose, and there's no income tax in Vegas. That's why I'm sure why he chose this organization, because Derek Carr is the type of quarterback that he can implement his offense in.
Are we going to visit some of your family out there this year and go to a game?
Yeah, you kidding me? Season-long tickets? No, that's be too expensive. Maybe if I hit a nice little Luke Donald 300 to 1, I could get some season-long. But absolutely, you talk about the Raiders and their business prospects for the next handful of years. Look, it's going to be fantastic, right? This is the one spot that if you're the opposing team's fans are going to want to come to, right? It's
they got the new stadium. They got Devontae Adams.
Exactly.
Of course, it just makes sense for them to commit to Derek Carr. Again, there's only so many Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson's floating out there. You can build, you can win and be productive with quarterbacks like Derek Carr. Matthew Stafford, is he better than Derek Carr? Yeah, but he's not like miles and miles better. I think that, the Raiders taking a similar approach to to the Rams in a lot of ways. They're committing to a top end quarterback. Maybe he's not like the elite of the elite, but they have playmakers at other positions now too. So I like the Raiders. I wish they were in another division. I'd get behind them more. It's gonna be tough sledding though, man. It's just gonna be AFC West is gonna be crazy, man. One of these teams is gonna be a disappointment. Like, it sounds crazy, but Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, they can't all outperform.
I think it's gonna be the Chiefs.
And I'm not even saying it's gonna be the Raiders that's gonna stink. It could be the Chiefs, could be the Chargers.
Yeah. Well, you know why too? Like how many teams, not just in the AFC West and the AFC and in the entire NFL, how many teams tried to combat what the Chiefs were doing, right? Over the last 2 or 3 years, acquiring free agents or players in the draft to say, we need to attack this part of the Chiefs offense or Chiefs defense, mainly the Chiefs offense, right? That's what your team now is comprised of, is beating the Chiefs. Or,
that's why the Chargers got Khalil Mack, right? I mean,
exactly. Like, so, and that's, again, you're going to see when we talk about the draft too, edge rusher. That's the need for every single team, especially in this division.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the draft too, because, of some of the players that they've acquired, Devontae Adams, I believe they don't have a first round pick, Reed. I don't think they have a second round pick.
No, round 3 is their first. They're
not on the board until 3. There are a bunch of draft props on the DK Sportsbook too. I guess, Jeff, when you start looking at this, because you see the odds shift so much because they're based off of so much of what we hear from reports and rumors out there, what is your approach when it comes to maybe betting a draft position of a prospect?
I mean, the sentiment is a big thing. I mean, there's a couple things. First of all, team need. You've got to, if you're betting a guy to go under his certain position, let's just take, for example, we could even go down a little bit in the draft, Chris Olave, the wide receiver. He's good, and it's a deep wide receiver class, though. There's plenty of other wide receivers that could jump him, like a Treylon Burks down here as well, who's at 23.5. So, when you're looking at it, you say, is there a bunch of teams coming up right before this that are definitely going to go wide receiver? So that's the first thing. And then it's just sentiment, is he getting built up in the last days of the draft? What was his combine like? Was he coming in hot and then he's fallen, or was he fallen and then he's coming in hot? Because it just tends to be these guys going one way or the other with trajectory. So obviously you want to project them out and project how good players they are, but you've got to project what the teams want to do too, and how likely it is a team is going to go in a certain direction. So I'm not even saying I like Chris Olave. I was just bringing him up as a bet. I think that, for position, if you're betting guys, I think cornerback is a really interesting position. Guys like Derek Stingley Jr., a few other ones down there. We could even go down. Actually, that may only be a few cornerbacks. Oh, Trent McDuffie's another one. But I mean, that's a position of need for a lot of teams. I do actually kind of like the under on Trent McDuffie. So, you look at things like that. But Kayvon Thibodeau is actually, a player who I think is going to get a lot of under bets on him. Obviously has been kind of just out of favor because, there's reports that he's he doesn't try in every play and the combine stuff and interviews. And it's just a lot of negativity and it just seems to be building towards the draft. So we'll see if that keeps on, but if it does, I think he's going to fall. I really do. So, team need, and then just overall sentiment really.
Well, he's definitely after Hutchinson, he feels like the best prospect available. And then you got to look at those teams that are drafting from 2 to 5. If you were looking at that specific bet, so it's the Lions, Texans, Jets, and Giants here, Jeff, and they all have needs for an edge rusher as well.
They do have needs for edge rusher, but the Giants have need for O-line. We could see trades up as well. So
needs for a lot of things.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. These teams are bad for a reason. They need things. They need everything.
Reed, again, it's a unique market. It's built on rumors. It's built on guesses, but it's a fun one to dig into.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is like Game of Thrones, right? Where it's just who's going to go for the Iron Throne?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, look, this is not the same, but Jeff's exactly right. This is a whole, a market of emotion and, sentiment. Remember Laramie Tunsil, day of the draft? He was one of the top prospects on offensive line, and then stuff surfaced with the gas mask and a certain object, and he fell down on drafts, And, you could call that a value, right, for the Texans. I think he was drafted, the Texans, the Dolphins, right? I can't remember which team like he was drafted to and then he got traded to, but yeah, absolutely. Like Thibodeau has talked about his brand, right? Why he went to Oregon, because he likes the Nike brand, and why he didn't go to some other schools. So it's all going to be on sentiment. What these guys should be focusing on too, I'm talking about the top 5, top 10 drafts, is can I get the most out of this pick? What does that mean, right? Is it best available? Is there a transcendent talent like Aiden Hutchinson? Is he that type of guy? Or everyone's falling in love with Trayvon Walker, similar to what Jadeveon Clowney did when he was drafted, that his combine numbers were off the charts, Walker's was. And he was slated to go like in the late first round. Right now, he's all the way up in the top 5. So to Jeff's point, our team's more like higher on someone like him and Sauce Gardner, where they're just like, this is the best prospect from every aspect? Or are we just getting into the whole like echo chamber of...
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No. And I think that it's part of Trayvon Walker's ascent is just like the draft doesn't have like a defined number 1. Like it's not like the super strong draft. It kind of reminds me of the year Baker Mayfield went number 1, because if people remember, Baker was like projected as like a late first round project at the start, like before, like a couple months before the draft. And then it was just like, well, he's like the other quarterbacks aren't that good. Baker's probably the best raw talent. And then he just shot up. Feels exactly the same with Trayvon Walker this year. So part and parcel is just, I actually think this draft is more interesting than last year because there's more unknowns. Like we knew that like quarterbacks were going early last year. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different moving parts in this one.
And runs happen too, right? The same in our fantasy drafts or season long or redrafts. Same thing happened with Baker Mayfield went 1 overall. Then you saw like all of these guys, right? The Sam Darnolds of the world, the Josh Rosens, and then Lamar Jackson, who I was extremely high on. He was someone who went 32nd or whoever it was, which was interesting because there are some economics that play for these teams, right? That go first, like that get drafted in the first round as opposed to picking a guy in the second round, right? Like there's money in the 5th year option is something that's very interesting on how teams work that from an economic standpoint. But yeah, if once you see Baker go off, and that's why like Aiden Hutchinson, if he goes off, you might see a run of edge rushers, right? The same way you see quarterbacks, because those are extremely comparable from an offensive standpoint for quarterback and defensive standpoint for edge rusher. They're extremely important.
I forgot about the Tunsil video. And then it actually worked out for the Dolphins because he fell to him and then they turned him into like this ginormous draft haul to like the Texans. And then Tunsil ended up making a boatload of money, like $22 million per year contract, like with Houston. I mean, after like the Ricky Williams experiment back in the day, Dolphins like, yeah, whatever. Do that quote by Ricky Williams. I got high and forgot I wasn't supposed to get high. Like that'll just always go down in history. It really is. A little more than 15 minutes left in the show. You guys want to talk about dudes who can roll a good meatball?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, cool. So I do remember, I think you mentioned it, Reed, on the show this week, or maybe I read it like in your article. It's a Pete Dye course, isn't it? Yeah. Pete Dye course. It's these are like some small greens too. And then like, is there is there a key statistic you're looking for with some of these guys? Like, do you need to be accurate off the tee with those small greens? Do you need to be damn good, like with your irons? Like, what is it?
You need to be present for the slate, like sitting. Oh, sorry. It's Jeff's.
I'm just kidding.
Hey, look, Jeff, there's a lot of things Jeff needs to tend to. He wears multiple hats, not just literally, but figuratively. The man wears multiple hats.
True, he's a dog dad.
He is. And a dad. A human dad. But yes, there are some key statistics for this tournament. Look, stroke skin approach is the key for every single tournament, but I would argue this one specifically. And you see a lot of approach shot, the distribution mainly come from 175 to 200 yards because guys are taking less than driver off the tee. It's a shorter course. So you want to get it in the fairway. You don't need to get it in the fairway because when you're in the rough, and I was looking at the stats per shot link, they were saying that here at Harbour Town, the average proximity to the hole from the rough was the closest of any on tour, meaning that the rough isn't that penal. Now, if you're doing the Emerson Latia and spraying it 50 yards to the right, that's going to hurt anybody, right? If you're doing the Ray Fowler and popping it up 100 yards in the air and only going $150, that's going to hurt anybody. But mainly
But if you're doing the Jeff Ulrich, 250 yards middle of the fairway with the
stripe show, then you're fine.
Yeah, and your Crocs and tube socks. That's what makes it even more impressive. Don't bury the lead.
So strokes gain approach, but I'm going to actually take a look, not necessarily at most of 175, 200, but the wedges. That's where these guys are so good. And the guys who can get it close with wedges on these small greens, those are the ones that you usually see at the top. And that's why this is like the Luke Donald Invitational. He's a master with his wedges. So approach, mainly wedges. And other than that, you just need to have a solid putting week.
Okay. So with all that said, Ulrich, like, who is your favorite outright bet? Like, who do you think has a game that can tackle this course? And Reed's mentioned before, it's been a lot of long shots who win this thing.
I mean, this is the week where you look at like plus. I mean, if Berger was a little bit bigger, I'd say start there, or Henley. But you've got guys like Webb, Hatton, Neiman at plus 3,500. Like, you should be starting there. But there is so many names between like 6,500 and 3,500. I mean, all these guys are live. Alex Noren, Siwoo Kim. My favorite is Chris Kirk for the simple reason he's plus 6,500. Chris Kirk has gained strokes on approach in each of his last 6 starts. His short game, he's third in strokes gain approach over his last 24 rounds. He's played this event a ton. He's won at Sea Island, which is very comparable. He's won at Colonial, which is comparable. Like, this is a Chris Kirk type of course. He's playing very, very good golf. So I don't know why he's plus 6,500 and like Noren's plus 5,000. Or Mav or like Kisner is plus 4,500. All these guys are live. And Reed's right. Like, it just, they're all in play this week because of the course. You don't have to be good off the tee. You can lose strokes off the tee here and win because the rough is easy to hit out of. If your short game's good, you'll save par on the tough par fours, and you'll still have birdie chances on the easier par fours. I think Chris Kirk, a plus 6,500 to me, if I'm looking for one bet, I'm taking him, and I'm, but again, because we're in this range, I mean, you can fire on a couple guys here, and that's where you got to go in this event. I mean, everybody is in play. Will I be shocked if Justin Thomas wins by 5? No, because he's due for that. But you've got to take the value on some of these guys because you really are getting good odds on a lot of these names.
Jeff, go ahead.
Go ahead, Reed. No, go ahead, Reed.
No, I was going to say that I knew you were going to bring in Chris Kirk. And so I was waiting for this segment because I was looking at him extremely hard over the last couple of days of wanting to essentially write him up in the articles. The one thing that worries me about Kirk, and I'm sure you know this too, he is god awful on Poa greens. Like, he is one of the worst putters on Poana greens, not even just this season, but you talk about over his career. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to, fix it. But when you talk about Poana can be different on the West Coast than on the East Coast, right? It can get bumpy later in the day on the West Coast, and it might be extremely different on the East Coast. But I don't know, man. That's a great number on Kirk, a guy who's one of the best in approach. It's just that putting, it scares me that he's just really bad in Poana.
I mean, putting on different surfaces is, if I was using it as a tiebreaker, I would probably look at that. So I understand, but like, to me,
just here at this tournament, you need to pop with your putter.
Reed's the grass guru.
I mean, he is. It's a good point. It's a fair point.
Yeah.
If he was
bring up Larry Tunsil.
If he was the same odds as Siwoo Kim, I'd probably say you should bet Siwoo Kim. But the other thing I would say in argument to that is these greens are pretty simple. Like, they're flat because they're so small. So guys can get hot, and I don't know. I mean, the grass splits. Guys seem to fluctuate so much in them. I don't use them as much as other people, but I definitely look at them, and you're right. I saw his splits this week too. So it's a fair argument, but I think at plus 6,500, that's something I'd be okay to overlook.
Any other week on like the RSM, right? Like, because they switched it from, I think it was Bermuda last year.
They did. No, you're right.
They overseeded it with Poana. Yeah. So that's the only
1,000 now. Yeah, there he is, plus 5,000. So he's a guy, right, who lost her in a playoff 3-4 years ago. Kevin Kisner, another one who Jeff mentioned, opened at plus 5,500, now down to plus 4,500.
Yep.
Lost here in a playoff to Furyk in 2015. And then we've seen him recently play pretty well on some P-type courses, the Players and then match play, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, he was what I think top 10 in approach at the Masters. Sans his Saturday round or sans his weekend, I think both rounds were kind of, poor, but still the guy was gaining a ton of strokes with his irons. And you just mentioned it I'm talking about Kisner. he's great on Pete Dye courses, right? Like these, like he's been outspoken and he said there's only a handful of tournaments that I can really win, that I have a really good shot at winning, because I can't hit it as far as these other guys. So like the RSM, the RBC, Colonial, some of these courses that are more plotter type courses that it doesn't matter. Distance is mitigated. It doesn't matter. So I think Kisner's a fine bet. You know, he's on my card. I liked him at Austin Country Club for the reason of being a Pete Dye specialist. Like him again this week, but Siwoo Kim. I mean, you talk about another course at Sedgefield Country Club in the Wyndham Championship that is extremely comparable to here. That guy is amazing. And look at his wins. Siwoo Kim's wins have been at the Players and the American Express. The the stadium course is a Pete Dye design. So when you put all those things together, like, and Siwoo Kim can absolutely beat like the best guys, right? He's done it before in the Players. He does not care. He does, DGAF. He does not care. He will go low, and he's done it before on the weekends as well, shooting 63, 64 and making it look easy. So yeah, those two guys in this range, like Jeff mentioned, you could go 5 or 6 guys in this range and be completely content with your card.
Yeah, he's Siwoo's just been racking up top 20 finishes. It feels like left and right as well. And you made a comment too. We didn't get to that like Stewart Sink range, like over in DFS this morning, Reed. But you mentioned, and I'm sure a lot of them are obviously going to be long shots here on the sports book, but you mentioned like in that $7,000 like dollar range, even in like the sixes, like there are tons of guys that you could throw in there, which would allow you to fit in the hand, maybe like 1, 2 of the dudes who are going to cost you around like 10 grand. Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you take a look at the last, 2 or 3 years, there's been a ton of guys that have been under $7,500 in like the top 6 in DraftKings scoring for that tournament that year, or for this tournament that year. And you start to take a look at some of these names. Matthew Neesmith has been a name that we've thrown around. Like Luke List at plus, 13,000. Like that's crazy. I know he played extremely poor at Augusta. He was really bad. But like, Jordan Spieth looked terrible at Augusta this past year, or this past week, and he's never missed a cut there. So it can make the best players look really bad. But this guy just won on Poana, Luke List at plus 13,000. He should not be in this range at all. Next to guys like, Sahith, who's great, but he shouldn't be in that range. Adam Svensson at plus, 30,000 has been someone that a lot of people are talking about. Luke Donald, I mentioned earlier. There's a ton of guys in this range. Davis Riley just came runner up on the Florida swing. There's a ton of guys here that could win.
Reed going back to Svensson. That'll be a fun weekend.
Oh God.
In the text thread. I like Dylan Fratelli there.
What do you see? Is anyone down here?
I like Dylan Fratelli down there too, at plus 13,000. I think that's a really good number on Fratelli. He's already won on a shorter course. Was popping a little bit early last week. So List, it's a fair point on List. Like he's just dropped too much. Neesmith, a South Carolina guy. Kazire too. I mean, he missed one cut. Like everyone was on Patton Kazire at the Valero. Then he missed one cut. And the only reason he missed the cut is because he lost like 2 strokes on the greens. But Patton Kazire is a guy who can gain like 6 strokes putting any week. And his approach game's been good. So he shouldn't be plus 1,800 either. Yeah, man. I mean, don't be shocked if you see one of these dudes. Charlie Hoffman, I don't know. I mean, you can't bet everyone this week, but it's just one of those events where it brings more people into play. And I can't even remember what Sink went off at last year on this event, but it was big odds.
I think he was in like the 2s.
God, yeah.
Was he?
I think he might have been like 150 or something. It was good odds. So someone in this range could easily pop up again. Someone like a Kazire, a Glover. I don't know. I mean, we've got to pick our favorites, and I think we've done a good job of picking a few guys out. I like Fratelli. I like Kazire. We mentioned List and Neesmith. I think those are all reasonable. If you're going to pop a couple guys down there, I would rank them, probably Kazire and Fratelli slightly above those other two, but those other two would be in my top 5 for this range too.
Yeah, yes, Fratelli's good. I like that. He's gained at least 1 shot on approach in 4 of the last 5 tournaments too. He's made 6 of the last 7 cuts too, dating back to Pebble.
No, he's solid.
South African.
Yeah, there you go. That's it's
your
wheelhouse.
I mean,
Louis should be at this course.
Louis prepping for the future.
Granted, he's a little, he's a little hurt. His ego got a little hurt at Augusta.
What's going on? What's
Howard.
going on with him, dude? That's just it's
almost like fractured his ankle a couple years ago and just top 5, no big deal. But Stuart Sink, 150. He was plus 15,000, last year to win. Joe Dahman is another guy in that range, right? With Patton Kazire.
Yep.
That's at plus 18,000. So again, look, I mean, I think you should, and that's why I think fading the top range, right, it's tough when you're pre-tournament, but I wouldn't be surprised if we just see one of those guys like Cam Smith or Morikawa at the end, right? You could see some guys play well at the beginning, but like we always said, this is what I said about Tiger and his leg is that the adrenaline and the emotions might kick in on Thursday, but then Friday through Sunday, let's see how he works out. Same thing goes with these top guys, right?
If you're betting one of the top guys, who'd you bet, Reed?
I'd probably go Cam Smith. Just because,
what a meltdown.
I faded that guy, the last, I don't know how many times after the TOC, but he's been amazing. You talk about in terms of approach and his ball striking right now over the last 24 rounds, he's better than Morikawa, which is wild to say. And he's one of the best putters on tour, right? Best short game guys on tour.
You just got to watch out for that driver, Reed. You mentioned it on the show this week about he was missing way left, and that's ugly. But he did finish the week second in strokes gained approach, and then shot 62 in the first round here last year.
What's crazy about him too is that you can never count him out, because when you can sink putts from 20 feet, you don't need to today. You don't need to this week because they're smaller greens. You're not going to have these massive putts. But boy, he's someone that can really light it up on the greens. And the other guy that Jeff highlighted, I mean, that's egregious.
I just think that's the best number of the top guys, like Dustin Johnson. I mean, a guy who wins multiple times a year, pretty much throughout his entire career. And I've said this week too, that it's a more technical track. You don't really think of Dustin Johnson, but let's not forget, Pebble Beach is more of a technical track. River Highlands, which is where he won at the Travelers in 2020, is a Pete Dye redesign too. The dude can play these tracks, and he's playing good golf. So, I mean, I think Justin Thomas is closer to a win right now, but with the odds that you're getting on DJ, if I'm betting anyone under plus 2,000 this week, it's going to be DJ. He's played this event 3 years in a row now. And I know it's for sponsorship purposes, but that doesn't matter. He's got experience playing it, and he's a way better putter on POA over his career. So maybe the greens, I don't know. I'm liking DJ this week.
Billy Horschel's in the field, and he hasn't missed a cut since the US Open. I'm just saying, dude.
I like Billy Horschel. I'm not going to besmirch Billy.
Ninth in the field in scoring on courses less than 7,200 yards.
It ain't happening.
I know it's not. I did like your point this morning where you mentioned Webb Simpson, because nobody has played Harbour Town better in the last 5 years than this dude, Reed. I really liked your pick this morning. I forget who Len went with. Was it Fitzpatrick? Do you think he was going to get it this week?
Fitzpatrick?
Yeah. Who's your pick to win, Jeff?
I mean, if I'm just picking one play, I'll go Dustin Johnson. I mean, if I was going to pick best value, it'd be Chris Kirk. But if we're just going pure winner, I'll say DJ.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. It's pretty good.
He's an okay golfer.
Yeah. You're just front running a little bit, Jeff. That's okay. Don't worry about it.
That's what I said. I mean, look, if I pick anyone, I'm going to pick DJ.
I mean, the shortest odds of any winner over the past, since, I don't know, 2012 was Webb Simpson at 30.
It's crazy. No, I mean, and that's what I said.
Crazy.
I'm not necessarily. I'm probably. I don't even know if I'm going to bet DJ this week. I mean, he certainly isn't in my initial betting card that I've already thrown out there. And I think that if you are creating a betting card, you should be focusing a little bit further down. But I think that if you're going under plus 2,000, he's the best value. So I may end up just adding him tonight. I don't know. I really do kind of like his chances here this week.
One last thing, really quickly, Sanjay in at 35. Sanjay, though, his before they increased the Masters, leading up to the Masters, those are his odds at Augusta, basically, plus 4,000.
And
right.
This is the whole argument too this week. Like, would you rather bet Dustin or would you rather bet Sanjay and Neiman at 3,500, like for double the odds?
The latter.
What about Shane Lowry? Shane Lowry's sitting there with Dustin Johnson too. And Shane Lowry, you like hearing when a golfer says, I'm playing the best golf of my life.
I'm just saying from like a perspective of you can get such bigger odds on Neiman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. And yeah.
I love you guys, man.
Shane
What? I know. It was a little frustrating.
He led
Man,
the field in basically everything but approach last week. Led the field.
I know, dude.
Better than Scheffler.
I mean, Scheffler also led in strokes gained, good bounces.
Oh, winning.
Like,
Yes, he did. A sand strokes gained total, Jeff. You know what I mean.
hitting it into the garden on 12 and then like just getting a nice
triple
bounce.
bogey on a par 3. Yeah, great job, Shane.
Triple bogey on 12. That was also Cam Smith, right?
No, he did it on the front 9.
Okay.
Or
Either way, man. I thought that was going to be so good. I'm like, oh my God, Cam Smith is out for blood, dude. Like he's like an Australian, like white shark because 2 birdies.
And the guy who really let us down was Rory. He should have gotten to -9. And then we could have seen the pressure get notched up. I mean, Scheffler, I don't know. But
I was so fired up in Samir's living room watching Rory. And then Reed was getting me fired up in our group chat. All right, we got to go. We got to get out of here.
Let's wrap.
All right. Jeff, good times. Reed, good times. Appreciate you, Eamon. AC on the 1s and 2s. Love you guys and gals. Highest rated edition of the Slate will return again next Wednesday at 5:00. Otherwise, we'll see all you guys and gals and human beings back here tomorrow morning on YouTube for The Sweat, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And dogs. Dogs are cool too. Not cats.
Not cats.